Close the door to the outer world for just a moment. In silence we awaken, in stillness we command. You were never meant to beg life for crumbs. You were meant to declare and see the world bow to your declaration. Never complain. When you complain, you agree with limitation. You tell the universe, I accept this. But the truth is, your acceptance is the only thing keeping it alive. Complaining feeds the illusion. It strengthens the shadows. The moment you stop speaking of what you hate, you starve it of life. Never explain. You owe no one an explanation for your dreams, your silence, or your certainty. To explain is to defend, and to defend is to doubt. Let your life speak for itself. Let your transformation become the answer to every question. When you know what you are doing inwardly, explanation becomes unnecessary. The one who manifests miracles is not loud. They are not desperate. They are calm, certain, quietly sure. They move through the world knowing that what they have imagined must appear. The world bends to the unseen self. This is law. You are not here to fight reality. You are here to replace it. And how do you do that? By refusing to entertain what no longer serves you. By never speaking of it again. By not giving it one more second of your precious energy. The moment you decide to no longer complain or explain, you have stepped into power. The miracle is not coming from out there. It's not delayed. It's not complicated. It is already prepared. It only waits for your assumption. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Assume it so deeply, so faithfully, that the world has no choice but to reflect it. Be still now. Let no outer voice disturb you. Let no need for validation creep in. Let no hunger for sympathy draw you back into the world of excuses. You are done explaining. You are done complaining. You are ready to command. Silence your doubts. Dwell in your desire. Live from the end. And miracles will not be rare. They will be routine. Never complain. Never explain. Manifest. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of power. It is the quiet confidence of the one who knows who they are and what they possess within. The person who remains silent in a noisy world is not weak, but supremely strong. They have withdrawn their energy from the outer chaos and anchored it in the inner kingdom. They understand something sacred, that words are seeds and not every field is worthy of planting. To complain is to speak from a state of powerlessness. It is the act of reinforcing that which you no longer wish to experience. Every complaint is a repetition of lack, a declaration that the outer world is your master. But the awakened mind knows that reality is not to be obeyed, it is to be shaped. Complaining feeds the problem. Silence starves it. And so the confident mind chooses stillness, not out of indifference, but out of intention. Likewise, to explain yourself constantly is to reveal uncertainty. You explain when you believe you must earn understanding, when you seek approval, when you are not yet convinced that your own inner knowing is enough. But the one who walks in alignment with their vision knows that explanations are unnecessary. They do not defend their desires, they do not justify their path. They simply walk it and let the results speak. The more certain you are within, the less you need to be validated without. Silence then becomes your most potent statement. It is the invisible signal that you have turned within, that you are now communing with the infinite, not pleading with the finite. When you say nothing but believe everything, you become magnetic. Others feel the shift in your energy. They may not understand it, but they respond to it. The world begins to conform, not because you shouted, not because you begged, but because you dared to trust in the unseen. Your imagination is your sacred temple. What you build there, in stillness and in faith, becomes flesh. And so the confident mind doesn't speak of what it doesn't want. It speaks only of what is already done in consciousness, or it remains utterly still, allowing the inner picture to grow in silence. For just as seeds do not sprout when constantly disturbed, manifestations do not flourish when constantly doubted. To master your reality, master your silence, not as repression, but as reverence, not as avoidance, but as divine strategy. Speak only when your words add power to the vision. Otherwise, let your silence become your shield. Let it be your stance. Let it announce to the universe, I know who I am. I know what I have assumed. I know it is done. And in that quiet knowing, the miracle appears, not as a surprise, but as the most natural outcome of a mind that never complained, never explained, and never doubted its own creative authority. You are always manifesting, whether you realize it or not. Every moment of your life is a reflection of your inner state. Your thoughts are not idle. Your emotions are not meaningless. What you consistently accept as true within yourself, whether through worry or wonder, complaint or creation, becomes the blueprint for your reality. This is the unchanging law. Many believe manifestation is something that begins when you sit in meditation, write down affirmations, or visualize a goal. But that is only part of the picture. Manifestation is not a switch you turn on and off. It is constant. Every belief you carry, every story you repeat to yourself, every assumption you refuse to challenge is actively shaping the world around you. The question is not whether, the question is, what are you manifesting? When you complain, you affirm that the problem is real, powerful, and persistent. You attach yourself to the very condition you wish to change. You feed the energy of lack and limitation. And because your subconscious mind accepts repetition as truth, it takes those complaints as instructions. It says, so this is what we believe now, and proceeds to build your world accordingly. Complaint is not harmless. It is creation in disguise, and it creates precisely what you do not want. But when you choose to create, you begin to use your mind on purpose. You shift from reality to intention, from fear to faith. But when you choose to create, you begin to use your mind on purpose. You tap into the real power. You begin to use your mind on purpose. You shift from reality to intention. You shift from reality instead of to feel. You begin to use your mind on purpose. You shift from reality. This is why your inner world is so vital. It is the garden from which all else grows. If you fill it with weeds of worry, weeds will appear in your outer life. But if you plant seeds of certainty, beauty, wealth, and peace, those too will rise and take form. What you nourish within is what takes shape without. And your attention is the water that determines which grows. Choose wisely. Your mind is not a playground. It is sacred ground. To entertain every complaint, every doubt, every negative assumption is to misuse divine power. But to speak as though it is done, to feel the joy of fulfillment now, to refuse to dwell in lack, this is mastery. This is living deliberately. You manifest not by force but by faith, not by effort but by assumption. And the universe is not judging what you want. It is simply mirroring what you persistently believe. So watch your inner conversations. Notice the stories you tell. Are they leading you toward what you desire or anchoring you in what you fear? Every thought is a seed. Every feeling is a command. Every assumption is a silent prayer. You are always manifesting. And the life you live today began in the thoughts you entertained yesterday. Choose now with purpose, and tomorrow will reflect the wisdom of that choice. Explanation is for the unbelieving. It is the language of doubt, the gesture of someone trying to be convinced by others because they have not yet convinced themselves. But once you truly believe, once you have seen the desire in your mind's eye and accepted it as real, there is no urge to explain. There is only quiet certainty, calm knowing, and the unwavering expectation that it must unfold. When you live from imagination, you are walking a path that most cannot see. Your vision is invisible to others. And because they cannot see what you see, they may question, challenge, or misunderstand you. But you do not owe anyone the burden of explanation. You are not required to justify your dreams to those who are bound by appearances. The creative act is sacred, private, and personal. It takes place within you. It is validated not by argument, but by manifestation. You must understand this. The only evidence you ever need is the result. Once the desire appears in your outer world, no one will question how it came. They will see it, and it will speak for itself. But until then, you are planting invisible seeds. And if you speak too soon, explaining, defending, reasoning, you are often digging up what has not yet had time to bloom. To explain is often to weaken. It is to step down from the throne of inner authority and seek permission from the crowd. But those who manifest consistently do not seek approval. They are not moved by opinion. They are not shaken by disbelief. They live from the end, and in doing so, they walk in peace. You must remember, your imagination is divine. It is the place where all things begin. If you have seen it clearly in your inner world, you do not need to explain it in the outer world. The moment you feel the need to justify your desire, you have already moved away from it. The moment you seek validation, you have placed your power in the hands of another. So be still. Assume the feeling. Occupy the state. Walk as though it is already done. When you do this, you will discover something profound. The need for explanation disappears. You no longer care whether others understand or approve. You know the law, you know the process, and you know that what you have imagined must become your experience. Let your life be the proof. Let your peace be the message. Let your results speak so loudly that explanations are no longer necessary. This is the mark of one who walks by inner vision, not outer sight. When you truly believe, you don't need to talk about it. You embody it, you don't argue for it, you live from it, and in time the world will see what you saw in silence. Then, and only then, will they understand. Until that day, remain unmoved. You owe them nothing but the radiance of your certainty. The more you speak of lack, the more you experience it. Words are not just sounds. They are declarations of belief, expressions of consciousness. When you speak of not having, of what's missing, of what's wrong, you are not merely describing your world. You are shaping it. You are impressing upon your subconscious a state of limitation. And because your inner world is the source of all outer expression, lack must then multiply in your life. Every complaint is a rehearsal of powerlessness. It is a performance of defeat, a confession that you believe something outside of you holds the power. When you complain, you are saying, "This condition is greater than I am. I am subject to it. I am helpless before it." And though you may not mean it consciously, your subconscious mind hears the message clearly and obeys. You see, the subconscious does not reason, it does not argue. It simply accepts repeated feeling tone thoughts as truth. It mirrors back to you, without bias, what you dwell upon consistently. So when your inner conversation is one of worry, frustration, or lack, your life begins to reflect more of that tone. It is not punishment, it is law. But the wise do not waste words. They do not speak of what they do not want. They understand the creative power of the tongue, and so they choose silence when they are tempted to vent, complain, or explain failure. They know that silence in the face of adversity is not denial, it is discipline. It is the refusal to energize a reality that is passing away. Speak only of what you desire. Declare the end from the beginning. Describe your life not as it is, but as it will be once your desire is fulfilled. Not to convince others, but to align yourself. You are not affirming to beg the universe. You are affirming to remind yourself of the truth, that all things are possible, and all things are done to you as you believe. And if you cannot speak of your desire with confidence, then speak not at all. Remain still, go within. Feel the wish fulfilled in the sanctuary of your mind. Let the silence carry the vibration of certainty. Let your quiet be your strength. In stillness, you are closest to the source. And from that stillness, creation flows without resistance. There is power in restraint, power in choosing your words with care, power in knowing when to be silent. For the one who no longer needs to voice their struggle has already left that struggle behind in consciousness. They have moved to the new state, and the old one is already fading. Do not speak of lack, do not rehearse suffering, do not describe what you no longer wish to live. Speak of your desire as real, or speak not at all. Your words are either watering the seed of your dream or feeding the weeds of your doubt. Choose them with reverence. Let your speech be sacred. Let your silence be strategic. And let your life be the proof. Miracles are normal when you assume your desire. What the world often calls extraordinary, supernatural, or impossible is in truth the natural result of an inner certainty. There is no magic involved, no special favor granted from above. There is only a quiet, unwavering assumption that what you desire is already yours, and the world then reshapes itself to reflect that conviction. Assumption is not a weak hope or a casual wish. It is a state of being. It is living from the end. When you assume your desire, you move beyond the question of if or how. You rest in the knowing that it is already done. You walk differently, you speak differently, your inner dialogue shifts. And this change in your inner world is what alters the outer. To the one who doubts, the fulfillment of desire seems like a miracle. They say, "How did this happen? How is it possible?" But to the one who understands the law, it is the most natural thing in the world. It could not have happened any other way. The assumption of the wish fulfilled plants a seed in consciousness, and consciousness, being the only creative power, must bring it forth. There is no effort required in this process, only alignment. The seed does not strive to become the tree. It simply contains within it the knowing of what it is. Likewise, your assumption contains the blueprint of your desire. Once fully accepted, it begins to unfold, not because you force it, but because it is already written in the invisible. Most people attempt to manifest by forcing circumstances, chasing opportunities, and trying to control outcomes. But true creation begins within. You do not need to manipulate the world, you only need to occupy the state. When you become one with the feeling of already having what you want, the world must conform. That is law. That is order. What others call a miracle is merely the result of someone dwelling in the right state long enough for the world to catch up. You must understand, reality is malleable. It is shaped not by effort, but by consciousness. It reflects back to you your dominant assumptions, those things you accept as true without resistance. So when you assume abundance, abundance flows. When you assume love, love arrives. When you assume healing, healing occurs. And to those around you, it may appear as a miracle, But to you, it was simply the natural result of your inner conviction. You are not asking the world to give you something. It already exists in another dimension of possibility. You are simply selecting it by assuming it. There is no begging, pleading, or waiting. There is only choosing, aligning, and trusting. So let go of the idea that miracles are rare. Let go of the belief that you must suffer, strive, or earn your desires. Assume your wish is fulfilled now. Walk in that state. Feel the relief. Live from the end. And you will discover that miracles are not exceptions, they are the rule. Disengage from the outer, command the inner. This is the secret path of all transformation. The world of appearances, the conditions, the circumstances, the facts, is not the source of your experience. It is the echo, the shadow, the outpicturing of an earlier state of mind. To wrestle with it is to try and change the reflection in the mirror, rather than the face itself. It is futile, exhausting, and fruitless. You must turn away from the illusion and direct your gaze inward, where all true power lies. The outer world is always late. It is always behind. What you see with your eyes is not the present, it is the past, crystallized. The moment you recognize this, you free yourself. You stop reacting, you stop chasing, you stop explaining or complaining. Instead, you begin to create consciously by mastering the inner realm. To command the inner means to choose deliberately the thoughts you think, the emotions you dwell in, and the scenes you play within your imagination. It means holding firmly to your vision in the face of contradiction, not because you are stubborn, but because you understand that what shall be already is, in the unseen, in the eternal, in the imagination. And if you persist there, the outer must conform. When you invest attention in what shall be, you are not escaping reality, you are creating it. You are moving from the temporary to the permanent, from the visible to the cause. It is not denial of what is, it is transcendence of it. You acknowledge what is happening, but you refuse to let it dictate your inner world. You choose instead to dwell in the unseen state of fulfillment, and in time the outer must catch up. There is great power in withdrawing attention. Where your focus goes, energy flows, and if you continue to stare at problems, they grow. But if you turn within and dwell on the solution begins to manifest. This is not wishful thinking, it is alignment with the law of consciousness. You are always manifesting. The only question is whether you are doing it deliberately or by default. Disengagement is not inaction. It is inspired non-reaction. It is the deliberate choice to no longer be a victim of appearances. It is refusing to let the outer world define your mood, your belief, or your identity. You step into your role as creator and withdraw from the drama of conditions. Commanding the inner is quiet work. It is done in solitude, in silence, in the stillness of your heart and mind. But though it appears subtle, it moves mountains. The world bends to the one who is unmoved by it. Creation begins the moment you stop reacting and start assuming. So stop wrestling, stop explaining, stop worrying. Turn within. See the desire fulfilled. Feel the relief of already having. Walk in that inner conviction. And as surely as the sun rises, the outer world will follow. It must, because it is only ever a reflection of what lives within you. When you no longer complain, no longer explain, and instead choose to quietly assume your desire is already fulfilled, you rise above the illusion of lack, fear, and doubt. You become still, not because you are passive, but because you now understand that creation begins in silence. In that silence, you no longer react to the outer world, you command the inner one, and from that inner command, miracles flow. What the world calls supernatural is nothing more than the natural outcome of a disciplined mind. You no longer beg for change, you become the change. You no longer seek permission, You walk in authority. You no longer explain your vision, you live it. That is true power. So remember this. Never complain. Never explain. Manifest miracles. Let your results speak for you. Let your silence build worlds. Let your assumption become your experience. Thank you for listening.